Is it that when some of our favorite songs as humans play, they have these repeating melodies over and over, but we don't get tired of them? The reason is because these melodies are repeating, but they're new each time. And this is only possible if something under them is changing their general emotion, which is the idea of harmony and functional harmony, which is only going to be understood once you learn how to section off chords, how to bring them together, and how to influence the emotion by changing up what these chords are in comparison to the melody being played. So to solve the first major issue, how do we divide these chords to know what the hell they're actually doing? To understand this, we have to know the two most important degrees of the major scale, the third and the seventh. This chord will only feel like home because it contains the third degree of the major scale. And if we want something to feel like it's really pushing us and egging us on to go back home, we have to do something with that 7, which is what we see in chords like the 5 chords. And now we're going to divide up the 7 chords of a key to solve the issue of knowing which chords have what job. Because the idea of functional harmony is that every chord in every key has some type of job. Whether you break the rules or don't, they have a job description that you must understand to know what the hell you're doing. To start this off, we have chords that are home. So we have our one chord, which everybody agrees is the ultimate home, the ultimate resolution. But we can still get that home feeling in chords like the 6 and the 3, but it's not this full resolution. There's something maybe sad or just maybe incomplete and making you feel like there still needs to be more to come or need to go somewhere. And this is only made possible by the 3 and the 6 chord because they have the third degree of the scale and they're just not the tonic function. And now we have our pull chords. These are the chords that have the 7th degree of the scale in them, but they don't have something that makes them feel like home, which is why we see the 5 with the 5, 7, and 2, and the diminished 7. And then in between, we have our bridge chords. They possess neither the 3rd or the 7, so they sit in this place in between and can make a transition from that. Just sound a little more smooth to the ear, and it's very commonly used, and you can use it for weaker resolutions. But this brings up the weird question. When we see this 3 chord again, we see that it has the 3 and the 7. So why is it that it's home ? And the answer is that it's a little more ambiguous than that. Depending on what chords come before it, like the 5 or the 7, it could feel like home. After the 1, it might feel like a bridge. Depending on what there is, it could feel like a pull. So it's really, in all of them, really just depends how you use it and what the context of your chords are. So using the 1, 6, 2, 4, 5, and 7 are going to be really self-explanatory, really easy to figure out. With a good amount of practice and some other YouTube videos, you're going to be able to figure out how to use this 3 and not make it this weird, ambiguous thing that you kind of have guesswork on. Now that there's a very easy understanding on the different job descriptions of different chords in a major key, what do we do to generate emotion? Going from major to any minor chord will always have that sad sort of tumble, and major to major always feels usually happier. Minor to major sometimes can sound bittersweet, and everything has a different reaction compared to what is played before it. So if we want something that feels directional and happy, we could put something together that makes us feel at home, doesn't have a big jump, makes us really want to go back home, and then just go back home like a 1, 4, 5, 1. But now let's say we want something to stay more on the upbeat side, but we really want to make it feel like it's going somewhere, but we don't want to resolve it because we're making a pre-chorus or something else. We could just make it a 4, 5. Slight direction, very big push towards home, but when you do not go to home when there's a big push, it just keeps building up and builds anticipation. So this is when we get our home chords, because we could go to our false horn at the 6 or maybe the 3 to make this sound very interesting. The 6 in that situation felt much more like this false, almost bittersweet hum, while the 3 felt like it was just carrying on that ongoing anticipation going somewhere. And another factor you heard there was the 3 didn't feel like home because we went 5, 4, 3. Naturally, you'd want to pull to the 2 and 1 because you're starting to play in a descending order. So ascension and descension can also add into something feeling like home, at rest, or like you built up to where you were trying to go. Playing something like this can almost make a 5 feel like it's somewhat of a resolution before flowing back into the 1. But if we were to do that, the 6 feels very uneasy, bittersweet, and it is perfect if it's what you're trying to use it for. And another very interesting example is what some people call an emo drop used in songs like Wake Me Up When September Ends. This is an anomaly where you change your 4 chord to a minor chord after playing the 4 chord previously in the progression like this. Which brings up the question of, can you just switch a major chord to minor? Music theory tells you yes, it's borrowing from a different mode and whatever. So you can change these chords to minor, and that takes away any home resolution feeling from our tonic chord, and it makes our 6th chord not feel like home at all. So what if we do this with something like the 5 chord that has a strong pull? Takes the function of a more bridge chord or 6th chord in that context. So changing tonality, ascension, descension can all affect the context of where something feels like home or feels like it's pushing you to go back. And another thing to keep in mind is extension chords. Adding on a 7 to a tonic chord all of a sudden make it feel like it's not at home anymore with that 7 added, and almost pulls it to being like a bridge chord. So making chord extensions can really vary how these things work, especially when they add something like the 3 or the 7 to a chord. Another great example would be changing the 4 to a 4 major 7. To feel a little more like the 6th chord with the addition of that 3rd coming in. So considering all factors of context of ascending, descending, major, minor, what chords are switching, are you coming from a 5, 7, a 2, can all greatly vary how the emotions of a song and a melody be redone. If you want to understand how to count your way to these chords and extensions better, watch this video on how to count like a musician to make this super possible, and subscribe for more content.